All right, I'm here with Austin Summers, not right after his win, but pretty close from it, from his win at the Battle Spirit Saga launch event this weekend, and we have his deck profile with him. Are you ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right, let's see what you got here then.
All right, so I always introduce the main boys
Yeah.
here first, the big ones. So starting off, we have 4 elk,
Yeah.
and I'll introduce his partner in crime here. We have 4 elephant as well. So these are 2 Mecha Beast partners in crime. This one, draw engine right here, also very aggressive engine if you ever need to go aggro. Personally, I don't really do it with this deck, but it's there for mainly the white mirrors and such.
Sure.
Like but draw 3, gain 3 cores. You can never go wrong, right?
No, you can never go wrong, and like some decks like just need to get rid of stuff, like it's have board clears kind of stuff, and
Exactly.
he gets hit by that.
Exactly. Going on to elk. Elk is honestly, surprisingly, the MVP for some of the things I could just pull off. I mean, I didn't. The damage part was important, but I try and control as much as I can. So I will actually end up just leaving at 1 or 2 cores against some matchups, a core to deny them from life for as long as I can, depending on the situation, until I can build up enough cards or build up a double elk board, and then I'll go 3 cores on them. But the main thing is being able just to block like the Giganta Rex and not having this die, and constantly being able to just block in front every single turn. So I'm always trading card for card without actually losing board state.
Yeah.
Helps me maintain that advantage. So just even the first effect is really important for maintaining a board state advantage and being able to trade with your opponent efficiently and not lose out on cards.
And real quick, would you say you've been on this deck for a while, right? Or
Yeah, I've been on it. I mean, since the previews came out, I've been playing on it for 2 months on and off. I tried a white deck, and I just really didn't understand how white worked at first.
Yeah.
So it didn't go super well. But eventually, I tested Elephant before Elephant became really popular. I was like, I'm just gonna put Elephant in my deck.
Yeah.
It looks like a meme card. Let me just mess around with it and find out. I was like, oh my gosh, this card's
it's
actually
like my
amazing.
favorite card from the deck for real.
Yeah.
So
Turned out to be amazing. And then I would scour the internet for anyone's build like concept ideas, just kind of like look at things and whatnot. That's why I always like mentioned Otter, because he was one of the ones I was like, okay, he has a really solid foundation on white. So I kind of looked at some of those things for ideas. But my friend also, Spencer Freeman, my testing partner, also
top 4 placer. Yeah.
Yeah, he also got me on a lot of ideas, which I'll show you in my next part here, which was the MVP of the day. But these were like the core, right? The core advantage and defense engine, just maintain absolute control of the game.
Yeah, both offense, and they also can be turned to win conditions at the end of the game.
Exactly,
too.
win conditions, and just help me keep my resources up so I don't fall behind.
For sure.
So I know these cards are both only at 3, but together they were the all-stars of the weekend. I mean, Enterprise needs no explanation. Armor at 4 cores, armor against everything. At 2 cores, usually what I like to drop them off at the beginning, as soon as I can, just to end up having a double block. You trade 1 card for 2 cards, and usually he won't end up dying, and then he can end up protecting your board from a lot of defense, or a lot of destruction effects as well. So your opponent isn't just trading a destruction effect for one of your cards, and you're losing out on board state and such as that. Buffalong Bill definitely started the show this weekend. I actually ended up being on and off on him. So my friend Spencer was one of the guys who got me onto this card. At first I was running 3 Odin, which a lot of people usually end up doing. But from our testing, I just found Odin's better when you're going aggressive and you're swinging with him a lot. But like Odin and Buffalong actually have the exact same math. With one dude on board, I know it's elephant, but it's a 3-drop, right? Imagine a 3-drop.
Yeah.
A 3-drop on board. Odin's only going to cost 4, but you need to put 3 cores on it to get its effect. Buffalong is 5 cores up front instead of 4, but you only need 1 core. So it's only 6.
Yeah.
Right? And then at 2 white dudes, then they're the exact same. So, and then with 3 dudes on like 3 reduction on board, Buffalong is giving you 1 more than Odin.
Yeah.
It'll be 5 to Odin's like 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yes, it's actually the same still. But then he doesn't steal the cores the entire turn, right? He's not holding cores for the rest of the game. So you're free to distribute all the cores everywhere you need to and play more dudes. It just ends up working a lot better. Plus he bounces 5, and then when you get to the reason I put these 2 together, is once you get to 4, you can start double swing with this guy if you need to go aggressive, depending on the matchup. Sometimes your opponent just has board states where you can't afford to stall out super long. Maybe you're playing against purple and they're just dropping a bunch of combos on you, and you're like, all right, I need to just start swinging with these 2 and that's 3 attacks, just 2 cards.
Yeah, and with 8 cores between the two of them, right? And they're both
Right.
like it's 2 12K swings and 2 8K swings.
Exactly. No protect each other, and you can just ice wall next turn. There was a few times where I had to drop these 2 together and just start swinging for the hills and kind of scrap the defensive game plan. So they're very versatile on both defense and offense, but I always recommend this over Odin. I just think he's better, unless you're really just trying to go for that mecha appeal, which I understand. I love mechs too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Going on to 3s, sideboard, theoretically, but actually just main deck
Okay,
for sideboard.
I thought you were saying all this all the time against me today, so
Yep.
There's a reason for it.
Yep. So these are the cards that people normally sideboard, but you main deck them just because I think I was discussing before. You can't really afford for this deck to go to game 3, so you want to make sure you have the sideboard for what the meta you think you're going into already in there, and then you can adjust game plans in your sideboard for game 2 on what they would bring in for their sideboard. So for the main deck, I'm like, okay, I'm going to play against a lot of red and a lot of purple this weekend. And so I have these 2 right here for obviously putting Enterprise plus fully on board. Just creates almost like this Exodia win condition where your opponent can't break the board. Even if they get rid of everything else, these 2 will always keep protecting each other. So they're kind of like a duo in that way. And then this guy was just actually for Curse, but I didn't expect Pterosaur to be so popular. I was like, I guess I'll fight like one Pterosaur player and I'll bounce their Giganto Rex. That's cool. But he actually ended up being the star of the show for this weekend for 3-drop lineup because I fought against 5, 6, like about 6 or 7.
About half your matchups, yeah.
Right, and so being able to just bounce like Giganto Rex super early game and having be 6K to block out other attacks definitely was clutch. Other than that, my other card that I ended up bringing in, mainly this is for white hedge. Usually in the white matchup, a lot of people say, oh, well, you're just going to end up stalling each other. But in white, you actually need to start swinging at each other as fast as possible. So you end up getting into a unbreakable board state against each other.
Yeah.
And this card just helps you do exactly that. It's also nice against bouncing the board if your opponent is relying on their board state for cost reduction. So maybe you're playing against purple and they're playing the 4 drops, 2 cost reduction. You can start bouncing those guys back to back with this and Buffalo, and they're going to have to keep paying 4 cores, 3 cores, 3 cores, just 1 or 2 cores more every turn than they really want to. And since you're also not really attacking and denying them cores off life, it creates this game state where they're going to keep passing back to you or attacking you like with 1 card they can keep getting rid of. And you can just end up pushing the game state longer and longer, gets you more cards in hand, and gets you more cores to start working with, and eventually you can start dropping your elephants and your enterprises.
For sure.
So that is, after that, just the mainstay, obviously, this is Pegacyclone. He should be 4 of in every white deck, in my opinion, no matter what. He's way too good.
Yeah.
You can go both aggressive with him because he has armor red, purple, and then he can block while rested. And then he's also a solid defensive card. You can play him out on the board. If your opponent wants to go wide, they have to rethink their strategy because he's just going to pop everything.
The fact that you become a 7K2 is actually really, really large.
Oh, yeah. 5 cores, 5 cores is a bit much, but even then, 7K for 5 cores, sure. You just want to stack everything on one dude, and you can start blocking some things out, make them rethink how they're going to attack. He's quite nice. And again, he's also really good if you're going to go aggressive. He's not just start tapping him, and then, of course. That's what a lot of people like to do, but I hold off on attacking just because, kind of diverts from the game plan. After that, 4 of Ice Wall, just a staple.
Yeah. You don't have to explain it.
Yeah, exactly. 3 Dream Bomb. I was between 3 and 4 in the tempo version of the deck. Same with Mermaid. We ran 4 Mermaid and 4 Dream Bomb in the tempo version, but since we're going control style, I needed a bit more room for a few other stuff like suppression. So I ended up dropping Dream Bomb down to 3, putting in a 3rd suppression there. Suppression is extremely good for just gaining you just gain better board state on your opponent. You block 1 card, they lose 1 card. They're like, okay, I'm free to attack your life. Okay, well, now you trade 1 more card for another card. You usually end up ending their turn. So they lose 2 cards and their turns over against rush decks.
Yeah, it's like it's more setup, but it's like a better Ice Wall a lot of the time.
It is, for sure. And it's only 2 cores as well, so it's quite nice. I'm not too keen on 4, but I might after this weekend, especially depending on how the meta goes. Maybe go up to 4. But Dream Bomb also is just, I can't go down from 3. It's too good. You can also close out games if you're wanting aggressive. Just bounce your last standing dude. Attack for game. It's really good. 3 Burning Force. So this card it's gone through a wild ride in my playtesting. I used to really love this card. I used to be on 4 of it a month or 2 ago. Then I went down to 3 because it just, like, the card doesn't have as much as a gotcha effect anymore. I think as players get better and better at their deck building, they start to play around Burning Force, and they start to either include, like, 8 Nexuses, no Nexuses, 6 Nexuses to play around Burning Force. You know, and they start putting their dudes at 4K, so it's kind of hard to use this card than it used to be. So this card used to be, like, amazing, but then people start playing around it, and now it's not as good. So it's at 3 right now. It's still solid for when it is, but honestly, I am thinking about going down to 2 these days, because the better people get, and the more people are aware of Burning Force, the worse it kind of gets. But then eventually, you know, people
so maybe like a 4th suppression for it, maybe. Or...
Exactly, maybe move Burning Force to the sideboard. But then, of course, that raises the question: would people eventually stop playing around Burning Force?
Yeah, the cyclical. Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
How deep does the rabbit hole go? But that's just a thought. After that, 4-star Blush Draw. You need to draw advantage sometimes.
Yeah.
Normally, my recommendation is if you're playing against a rush deck, or if you think you're playing against a rush deck, or if you're unaware what you're playing against turn 1, I would not just pay 4 cores to draw 2. It does seem good, but you end up saying, okay, please attack me and kill me. And just end up taking 3 damage for no reason. That feels really bad. So I usually end up, if I draw this turn 1, I'll just kind of like sit within a hand if I don't know what they're playing. But of course, against purple, you do want to put in the burst.
Same against, so good, yeah.
Same against yellow, although yellow's a bit riskier because they can opt not to play any on summons if they really want to.
Thoughts about like putting that on the side and like maybe charge draw on the main instead, because it's the same thing that is more flexible on the
power.
On the power, yeah.
It is flexible on the power, but honestly, I think even if I had a charge draw, I'd probably still just use it to draw 2. So I prefer this because this card's insanely broken when you burst it and you draw 2 more. For 4 when it just the stars align like that for this deck, because it doesn't happen as much compared to like red. But when it does happen, it's insane. Not broken, but pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty good. So I still go with the 4-star Blush Draw.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, paying 4 for 4 draw is still like pretty nice. On curve. Yeah.
Yeah. Going to Nexuses, I only run 5, mainly just for their effects. Rocket City is good for when you're fighting against purple. They have their Nexus on to draw a card, and you respond with this, and you're saying, if you don't have Burning Force, then we're going to be matching card for card. And it can actually be a win condition if your opponent really cannot get rid of it. You can put 2 of them on board against purple, and now they're just drawing 2. They're drawing 1, discarding 2, and eventually they just have no hand, and they can't attack you at all. So that's pretty nice as a secondary win condition against decks that draw too much. Same against yellow. If you put 2 against yellow, they really cannot attack you anymore. Because in Friesel, or they just can't play Friesel, which is perfect. Excellent.
Yeah. Oh, dang.
And the 1K also comes in handy. I mean, it just makes math and makes numbers. So occasionally the 1K is also nice. And then cost reduction is really what you want to play it for as well.
For sure.
Then we have this big guy. This is the sack card. If you just get it, congrats, you just high rolled your opponent. And if you don't, well, you tried. You really play it because you do want. Like, I don't really like playing just 4 Nexuses because those are like just 4 Burning Force targets. So like you play the 5th and it's like, oh look, now they just can't Burning Force every single card.
I mean, you have a chance for one to stick. Yeah.
Right. It's unlikely that they're gonna go Nexus Burning Force back and forth, but it's just the idea of it. And the effect is good if you do end up high rolling your opponent. I've done it. You just end up putting an elephant on board super early. Great. Love to see it.
All right, so that's the main, and then you have the side as well.
I do have the side right here. So sideboard, 1 Counter Sword and 1 Dream Bomb for the 2 spells actually in here. So Counter Sword is really just for purple and red. You can opt not to. Like this is kind of like a last minute sideboard for purple and red. I wasn't too sure how many Terra Nova decks there'd be. Little did I know there'd be like barely any. Yeah. And really, you don't necessarily need it because you do normally win those matchups anyways. But I was kind of worried Terra Nova could just kind of get there sometimes with how aggressive they can be and then playing this 5 heal. So I was like, all right, I'll put this in the side just in case. Didn't really come up too often. But, bouncing card back, gaining 1 life, never too bad for 2 cost, usually. So yeah. And then a 4th Dream Bomb. This came up all the time. It's really just good when you need to side out your Burning Force because they're not doing anything in a matchup, or you're playing game 2. This is the game 2 part I was kind of talking about. You're siding for their sideboard. So I realized it was funny actually that in round 7 when I fought my first red aggro list, I was like, game 1, I'm like, man, he has me at 1. He's not going to get me off 1. I'm gonna win off 1. But he just has me at 1. I'm like, man, I even told him, like, if you have Derm Dyna, that'd be broken. He laughed about it, right? And I was like, haha. And I was like, I'm going to put the 4th in because you never know. Burning Force is needed anyways. Sure enough, he drops Derm Dyna game 2. And I'm like, oh, perfect. You definitely want the 4th in the side. And then eventually, I'm sure we might start moving to a meta where they start maining Derm Dyna in Pterosaurs. So then you just end up maining the 4th of this. And, you know how...
Yeah, the adapt to the adapt. Yeah.
We have 2 Valkyrie Mist for the white. It's just whenever you're playing against white and you're trying to beat their tempo out and trying to rush them, you side in 2 of these guys, or 2 of these ladies. Apologies.
Yeah.
2 of these ladies.
Yeah.
And they're just good for your opponent has a rested dude, or not, they're not attacking with their guy, and you just bounce it back and get 2 attacks off. They go, okay, well, I'll try and play one more guy. Oh, you dream bomb it and kill them, right? Or put them at 1.
Yeah, for sure.
So, very good card. And also decent against decks that are relying on cost reduction a lot. Red, not so much. Is decent early game, but not so much late game when they already have like double Nexus established. But it's really good against maybe purple when they're playing a lot of 2 cost reductions, but they're playing 4 drops. Really just analyze your opponent's deck and see what kind of cost curve they're going on.
Yeah.
After that, we have 2 of the Lion Male.
Okay.
This is really for Rush. It was mainly for Yellow Rush. Ended up being a really good sideboard for Red Rush as well.
Red Rush, yeah.
Yep. And so just kind of coincidental there. And then I do end up siding in against purple occasionally as well.
Yeah, it does have the armor purple too, which is nice. Yeah.
Right. And you could say, well, at that point, why don't I just main deck it? And I might end up working with a build that does main deck it, but for now I just wanted to leave it aside. I wasn't sure how well it would do. And honestly, it didn't really come up too often either. I would just play it and my opponent would just be like, well, I can't play 0 cost anymore, and just stop playing it, which is nice, but you can't really drop it against red super early either because it is 3k, so you have to wait a turn to drop it with 3 cores. So it's kind of inefficient sometimes, but he's not bad. He might need a bit more testing to see how useful it really is. One Derm Dyna of my own.
Sure.
This is a hedge against white because it's just being able to attack swings so you can't block it, so you have Ice Wall in your burst zone, or you are going to take the one and Elk will not trigger, is really nice. But the one white deck I did fight against, which is my friend Spencer, he ends up not playing any Nexus anyways, so there's no point. I know he plays Derm Dyna, so I end up siding at my Nexuses, plus you need to against that deck because it's tempo based, so you can't afford to wait a turn and play a Nexus turn 1. So he really didn't come in a lot, but maybe I'll make a deck around him someday, and because he's kind of cool, has a good effect.
He's really cool. Yeah, agreed.
And then the final one, what the dog doing? The boy. So this was the most coincidental sideboard I ever had. So it is funny because my top 4 and top 2 opponents were like, "What is this card?"
Yeah, I'm making sure I remember what it does. It just becomes a big blocker, right? That's about it.
Well, yeah, that's all that one does. But the real part is armor
red, white. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So, when me and my friend Spencer were building the Temple White deck, we're like, "What does it lose to?" Armor white. Well, Enterprise doesn't hit the board until a little too late sometimes. So I put this on the sideboard mainly for anyone who's playing aggro white, which does run a lot of bouncing.
Yep.
And then if I played against a Temple White deck or someone who is running Mermaids or the Valkyrie Mist or Dream Bomb like a 4 of, this is just a really nice hedge into the mirror. For that armor white specifically, they can't get rid of it. You're forcing them to go into a long game, which the Temple White deck may not like, and you are a bit more suited for.
Sure.
But it ended up coming in against all my red aggro decks just because it does have armor red, and at 2 cores it can block 6k. So it's like not bad.
Yeah.
There were times where I just didn't side it. I was kind of messing around because I wasn't sure if I should side it, should I not side it. So I bring it against some of the red aggro decks. Some decks I didn't bring it in.
We're good.
Some decks I would bring it in. Some decks I wouldn't bring it in for the red aggro. I just kind of varied. The testing experience for red aggro, I wasn't expecting it, so I wasn't sure to bring it in or not all the time. But so it never felt bad, especially since I usually side out my Nexus anyways against the red aggro.
You just need something for cost reductions anyways.
Right, exactly. It was a cost reduction, couldn't be popped. You can side out, if you think they might bring in Curse Combo, you can side, if you think they're not going to, which most red aggro decks can't really afford to, you just side out the Ice Maiden anyways.
Yeah,
so
yep.
works out.
Oh, cool. Well, that is the deck. Quickly, what do we say the worst matchup and best matchup for this deck is?
So the worst matchup is actually the white tempo deck that I was talking about. It's such like yellow's pretty bad. Yellow is really bad, but the white tempo, just being able to bounce your stuff and then have armor and then actually have a late game with Elk is an absolute nightmare. White aggro, it does a similar thing, but because I don't know, it's just they're very similar because they do it on the Valkyrie Mist, but their end game isn't really suited for like Elk, right?
For sure.
So if you end up having usually the aggro decks are playing Derm Dyna, and even with Derm Dyna is really strong close out of game, but all their cards are so small and they aren't getting so much resources that Derm Dyna is like, well, it might not finish you with a Dream Bomber too. But the Elk version, our version ran Elk and it ran Elephant. So late game, if you're put into like a late game situation, then they're gonna have an Elk and an Elephant, and it's like, well, late game is still really tough to navigate, and you're at 1 life compared to like 4 or 5. So that was like the hardest matchup. Easiest is probably Nova. Typically just because like Star Dragon Nova, typically just because of how the deck functions. Usually I have to expect that they're bringing in some sort of anti-white cards because they also know that red it's so bad.
Against
so bad.
all your armor. Yeah, it's
much
just
armor. Enterprise hits the board. What do you do?
Yeah.
You can Dream Bomb half their stuff. Mermaid bounces the rest of the stuff, so that's really difficult. Other than that, I think the red Aggro that's really popular, I feel that's like out of 50-50.
I'd say so too.
Yeah, 50-50 there. It's just really who draws better and how do you play out to the outs that they have. I was fortunate enough to draw really well against some of the matchups or against other red aggro decks. They wouldn't have the double Giganta Rex, or they wouldn't, or I'd have my, it's all varied, right? It all kind of depends. Maybe they misplay and I end up taking advantage of that moment when they misplay. But it's a very varied matchup, very difficult match to navigate, but is decently fun.
For sure.
And then I'd say the purple matchup is favored.
Yeah, I'd say it's like 60-40 almost.
Right.
Like, it's just around there.
But it depends because the Maduke matchup is actually really hard. My friend has a Maduke deck that's like all cursed dudes. They can rush you. They drop Maduke. Can't really deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those matchups that you're forced to play, just like the white tempo list, you're forced to play a bit more aggressively because you can't afford to dirtle as much.
Yeah.
Curse users are getting around everything unless you get like double Elk, 3 Elks up on board that can just keep tapping, but then they just end up dying to a curse combo. So yeah, it's definitely one of those matches where you also have to go aggro, so the Mermaids probably come in against those as well.
For sure.
Just be a bit more aggressive there. But yeah.
Gotcha. Well, cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time for some games that we did on my stream, as well as the interview and stuff. Any shout outs before we close it out?
Absolutely. So, I already mentioned him, but Spencer Freeman, testing partner throughout the entire event, got top 4. Was hoping to see him in finals, but it's all right. I got vengeance.
Yeah, you did. You did. Yeah.
I was able to animate it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Other than that, shout out to Team Draconic Fury, which is my Arizona team, and everyone inside that. Like Nick Bond is a big guy who encouraged me to actually play Battle Spirits this weekend. I wasn't really.
Yeah.
Like 2 months ago, I wasn't going to play this game at all. I was like, oh no, I don't know if I want to play. I have the free time. There's something I'm trying to focus on. But he's like, no, I encourage you. You're going to love it, just like Buddy Fight. So I was like, of course, just like Buddy Fight. Sure, I'll play it.
Sure.
So shout out to him as well. And
he's going to collect that 10% manager fee for that,
he's
right?
He's trying. I'm telling him he can't. I'm telling him there's no way it's happening. But, I'll probably owe him for money for one reason or another.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But, yep. That's my squad there. So
nice. Well, I'm glad it all worked out. And again, congrats again this weekend. And that's going to be it for us. So thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate it. And catch you all next time.